This episode is all about Sean's extended stay in Medellin, Colombia. We get into safety, cost of living, the expat community, co-working, and the things you won't see in brochures. I spend a lot of time and effort trying to make it look like I'm not in a basement. And I'm like, nobody fucking cares if I'm in a basement. What does it matter? So instead of putting up all these fancy things, I'm just like, well, there's the water heater and who cares, So I'm like,
it looks new too. So you got a great heater.
Yeah. Very efficient. It's very, very efficient. Yeah. We're going green. This is our first time recording in probably a few weeks. We've had a lot of shit going on. You've been traveling. I had my little silent meditation retreat. We'll see how much of either we can get into today. I think we'll definitely get into your traveling first because the retreat stuff is a little exhausting. It's such a long thing to talk about. There's so many aspects of it. And unlike the other shows that I'm on where we talk about these types of things all the time, which we will start getting into more self-help and self-improvement things. So there was a little bit of lead in, like on Ori Goldstein's show, for example. So it was already set up. He'd gone on the retreat. I'd gone on the same retreat after him. But I feel like to do the listeners and the viewers a little bit of credit here, we'll have to really make sure I describe every aspect of it. But first off, last time we spoke, you were in Colombia. Were you in Colombia at the time?
No, I was in Oaxaca.
That's right.
Sorry, I got some guy going to do some repairs in the door apparently. Here.
Oh, that's fine.
I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, and right now I'm in Medellin. We're representing the hat.
That's right. I love it.
Yeah, I love the hat. So
it's great.
It's a big difference here. I mean, I made a joke with Mexico has United States right above it, and then below it is like Colombia. I mean, you have Nicaragua and that, but it's literally in the center of like these two amazing places, and they just need to get their shit together. Because the infrastructure here in Medellin, is phenomenal. It's one of the cleanest streets that I've found. One sec, I'm recording something right now. Momento.
It's probably not that big of a deal, but yeah, it's funny that.
Here, we'll let the podcast.
Yeah. That's okay, buddy. That's okay. Yeah. As long as it's quick, as long as he's just doing something real quick.
I think he's done now.
Isn't that funny though? It's like, you're in a room talking.
Fine. Yeah. He's not doing anything important.
Well, so I was curious about that because like my limited knowledge of where you're at, obviously Pablo Escobar's from there. That's where that cartel started and everything like that. And you watch these shows and it's not all historically accurate, but like the one that was on Netflix, Narcos or whatever. Yeah. I think that was the name of it, right? They said that a lot of like that area, he put a lot of money into it. Like he dumped a lot to keep like everybody around him happy so that, he could do his thing and he wouldn't get a hard time. I wonder if that's some of it. I'm not saying that the whole area has been maintained with drug money. I'm just saying maybe it's been kept up because it sounds like it's a night and day difference between there and Mexico.
It's night and day. I mean, that might play a part of it as well. I mean, like, because the drug money kind of probably built some of the infrastructure to begin with, but the longevity of it, like, it's even in like the suburb kind of, barrio areas that I've driven through, the streets are clean. Like, everything is really clean here. The roads are laid out properly. Everything's like, the traffic is designed to flow a lot nicer. You can flush toilet paper down the toilet, which is a huge thing, right? Like in Mexico, you gotta wipe your ass, you gotta throw it in the garbage can because the plumbing gets backed up, right? So it's definitely even when because I did a little bit of research like into Colombia before we came down here, but not a whole lot. But I was under the impression of what I heard on the news, the radio, what people say like, oh, it's Colombia, drug cartel. I feel safe here. I mean, another big difference is when you're like, me and Justin, we used to live in Playa. I still live there in winter and stuff like that. You can't go 5 feet without seeing at least one police officer, one military guy, a Marine. The streets are flooded with cops with their lights on, and it's for your security. I get that. But I've maybe seen 10 cops in the entire time here. There's very minimal activity. Right. So you almost feel safer in that sense. I know what they, seeing the military, you're like, oh, they're here to protect me. It's like, but why do they need to be here? Right.
That's a really good point. I never thought of it that way because when I see, because I had that job before. So when I see like the guys in Playa, all the armed people, and there's different levels. Looks like there's the local police, state police, the feds, and then they've got the military in there. I don't care if there's guys walking around with assault rifles. It doesn't bother me at all. But it's weird because you're right. They're supposed to be there to show whatever, but it does make some people uneasy. And then you make a really good point. Like, why would they need to be there? Like, why do we need 8 guys in a pickup truck with assault rifles? So I wonder what the criminal justice system is like where you're at also, because that plays into it a lot too. Because sometimes populations get kept in check and sometimes they just kick your ass. But this is really interesting to know, because I wanted to make a trip down to Colombia, specifically where you're at. So others, aside from just like the general like safety and the cleanliness of it, how is the stores and everything else, like everything for living?
They have everything that you need and more. Like everything that you like, every type of like clothing line, accessories, the food. I mean, the food isn't like the greatest, but I've had really good food here. But like the traditional Colombian food, it's like they never heard of what spices are. They don't know what salt and pepper is. It's just very plain and mundane. But I mean, you get we had tacos here and burritos, a Mexican restaurant. Food's amazing and it's cheap. It is so cheap to live here. I mean, we go for dinner for, let's say, a family of 4, right? Say 4 of us go out or whatever like that. And, a dinner costs $50 for 4 people, right? Which is,
that's pretty good.
You can't even get dinner for 1 in America. Right?
No.
So the cost of living is way cheaper. I mean, like, I got a cup of coffee. This is $1, right? For a cappuccino, like infused, steamed froth, it's $1. Right. And what's kind of nice too is everywhere you go, it's nice in its own kind of concept. So everywhere you go, they like we went to Guarape. I can't ever pronounce the word right, but it's this giant rock. It's like in the middle of like this lake area, and it's like, it looks like an alien spaceship that just got planted in the ground. And they have stairs to climb all the way up. But to park in there, it costs $2, so like 8,000 Colombian pesos. Even though they could have done it free, but because they charge, they have people out there working all day long. They're gardening, they're weed eating, they're taking care of the grounds. Everywhere you go, there's maintenance being done, but it costs like 4,000 pesos, which is like $1 US. So even though it's kind of annoying that you have to pay everywhere you go, it's such a low fee that you don't really care that much. But they actually use that money to make the place better, right?
That's
Where
nice,
a lot of places you go to, and especially Mexico and the States, it's free to go a lot of places, which is nice, but then they aren't taken care of because there's no money incentive for them to invest into it to maintain it. So, I mean, overall, and we drove 2 hours outside of Medellin, so like way out into another town. We're going to be doing a big road trip later tonight and this weekend, like 8 hours south of here. But even in the little smaller towns, where you can tell, there's a bit more poverty there, there's a bit less money. There's no garbage in the streets. There's no people begging for money. There's no, drunk people everywhere. There's a few homeless in the main city. Obviously, it's a city of just over 3 million people, so you're going to get some homeless, right? But there's no needles everywhere. It's basically like if America had gotten their shit together, cleaned up the streets, fixed homeless for the most part, and got rid of drug addiction. That's what Medellin's like.
Now I'm even more curious to take a trip down there. I know there's not, probably the travel is not as direct as I'd like it to be, but that's just because I'm lazy and I don't like to go through multiple airports. But that's life. Like, I got to go through a bunch of airports. Before we get into like your co-working and maybe some of the people you've met and just what the expat community looks like down there, maybe keeping people from going there, other than the obvious people here in Medellin, and they're like, oh, the drug cartels, which is always inflated. It's never that big of a deal, right? So
yeah, and I think that's honestly the point right there. I think the thing that keeps people away from it is the brainwashing and the news you get fed back home telling you that it's an unsafe place, right? Oh, it's South America. Like, you're going to get robbed and bugged. And I mean, you can get robbed and mugged in any fucking country you go to, right? I mean, we're going to New York in a month. And like, I have a higher chance of getting robbed there.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get robbed anywhere because you're so big, but but you definitely have, you can still get still probably run into a situation that would make you uncomfortable compared to where you are now. Just weird shit going on. New York used to be, up until a few years ago, was really on the upswing with just cleanliness and safety. Then we had that rough patch here a few years back with all the police stuff, and then all that which we won't get into today. We will at some point, but everything kind of went downhill. And then of course now there's a lot of stuff. So anyway, not to talk about New York, but that's awesome though. I love that. So there's plenty of co-working. Obviously, you're in a co-working space now, expat wise, or just visitor wise. What's that community like? Are you running into a lot of Canadians?
I mean, there's definitely a bigger expat community in Playa del Carmen. I find that's definitely more of like a hub. I think Medellin is the what I've found so far. The problem is it's very spread out. It's a huge city. Like it can take you an hour and a half to get from one end to the other, right? So because it's so big, people are all over the place. It's kind of hard to like centralize where the expats go, where the expats live, because we're in Castropol area. And there's Pueblado. There's another big one area. So there's like 5 or 6 like areas of Medellin that are really, really nice that expats like to live in, but they're 30-minute cab rides all away from each other, right? So everyone's kind of spread out. So yeah, I haven't really found that many expats that I've become friends with. There's a couple from San Diego that I sit with every day when I'm here. They're really nice. But it's a very transient place, right? I don't think people are here for that long term from what I've found. So it's kind of hard. I mean, like with Playa, like I said, because it's only a town of 300,000 people, everyone's in one place, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's one Fifth Ave, there's one, Playa car where all the, rich people want to live. There's everyone's kind of boxed in with these little areas where they live. Where here it's so spread out, right? So we're working on trying to set up a little community here with the conscious co-working group that I've been a part of in Playa del Carmen. So we're looking at starting up a meeting on next Friday, so 8 days from now. We're renting an Airbnb, and we got 63 people already in the group chat already from doing Facebook posts and that kind of stuff. So we're going to bring them all together, and I'm going to try and find a host that's actually going to take over for me when I leave, because I'm leaving first week of August. So we want to kind of cultivate our own kind of conscious co-working place, because going to these co-working spaces are, they're nice. But there's a big difference between when I come to a place like this, I'm here to work, right? I'm headphones in, head down, getting work done, which is great for when you have work to do. But other times let's say you're stuck on a creative project, or you're not really sure what you want to do next, or you're having troubles trying to think of, the next step, or you want to mingle and meet people. You can't really do that at places like this. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not just going to go up to the guy behind me and be like, so, hey, buddy, where are you from?
Grab his earphones, like, hey, motherfucker.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, what's up, right? So the reason for these conscious co-working events is you can go there to work, but it's also to network, to brainstorm, to collaborate, to communicate, to research, to hear other people's perspectives, right? Because there's a lot of times where I'll be on a project and I'm like, I don't know what I should do here. And then, I go to one of our conscious co-working events, and people are like, oh, you should do this. You're like, it's fucking perfect, right? Yeah. You just need that little outside perspective, and it works.
The conscious co-working, I know you got involved in that. I talked a little bit about that, because we'll start linking their stuff, and because I was very interested when I saw some of your posts and everything. So what are they all about? Are they only in Playa? Is that where it started?
Yeah, so it originated in Playa from a guy named Matt. So he came down. What the tagline and what the incentive behind it is, we want to try and cure loneliness. That's the big thing. So we find that a lot of people, especially in the entrepreneur industry, the digital nomad industry, you can be very lonely, right? All the friends that I had back home, and even some friends that I still do have, none of them can, the problems that I have or the struggles that I'm going through, they can't relate. They don't understand, what I'm going through. And even if I wanted to try and bring up, a situation that was bothering me, because I've been, a bit more enlightened, I've awakened a bit more to what's going on in the world.
More worldly, like your problems are more global than their bullshit, like gas price, you know what I mean?
Trudeau right now in Canada, I don't give a fuck, right? Yeah, so my problems just aren't even on their radar, right? So if I have a problem, I got to keep it to myself. Right, and that's not a good thing. So when you're traveling around, and we found all these people that were traveling, they felt like they kind of lonely. So Matt, he came down. He realized that there was a need for this. Right, there was a lot of people that I think he reached out and made a simple post on Facebook inside a couple of the expat groups in Playa. And he had hundreds of people reaching out and be like, I'd be more interested, because he said, he wanted to create a space where people can come to his house, which is a big thing. So it's not at a restaurant or a bar where it's loud and there's music and people are drinking. The point of the conscious co-working community is to be more conscious, right? Like, what are we putting into our bodies? What are we feeding our bodies, both, energetically, mentally, food wise, drinks, beverages. So we want to, and you feel more at home when you're at someone's house, right? It's, you go to like a bar, you're like, oh, I didn't really want to drink tonight, but everyone's having a margarita, better get a margarita, right? So we wanted to avoid that. So we created the Content Group to be able to bring people together to both work, brainstorm, collaborate. And we've had a lot of success with it. We've had a lot of people that have actually gone off and ventured off with other people to create their own businesses. The whole idea of monetizing and branding and actually franchising the co-working space came from me going there, talking to Matt, meeting this other guy named Andy, and the three of us collaborate together to start working with a branding specialist and start looking at ideas of how to monetize and either make it into like a membership platform, or and we want to eventually create an app where you can see fly into Bogota or Medellin or Playa or Mexico City. You just pull up this app if you're a member, and it shows you all the houses in the city that have co-working events. And you can go and you can register to go to this person's house on this day, register to go to this person's house. So no matter where you go, you can find your tribe, right? That's another big thing. You want to be able to find your tribe. So that's where the idea came from. Like every city I've ever gone to traveling has some sort of community, right? Everyone does. Like Medellin has their, I think it's called the Perliculus community, where it's a great community. But the thing is every community is different, right? Their rules are different. Their motivation, their vision's different. They might all be somewhat aligned, but it's not standardized. So we want to create something that like this is the template, this is the blueprint for what we want in our hosts. So if you want to become part of the conscious co-working community and you want to be a host, these are the guidelines. Not really like you have to do this, but we want it to be no alcohol. We want it to be at someone's house. We want snacks and beverages provided for people who are attending. So make us 9 to 5, right? So it's like a normal work day. So because we found a lot of people, like there's not a lot of things to do for people that don't drink, right? Like you think about
that's why I drink so much. Always have shit to do.
Yeah, you're smart, right? But I mean, like I've had maybe 2 drinks in the last 6 months, maybe 3, right? So yeah, not that many, maybe 4. Who knows? Maybe under 5. I know that. I mean, my numbers just keep going up. 1, but 2, 3, maybe 4.
Maybe 62. I don't know.
Yeah. Under a case, yeah. Right?
Right.
But I mean, there's not really a whole lot to do for people that don't drink, right? So we want to be able to create a community that encourages healthy living, healthy lifestyles, and it's just been kind of growing from there. So right now we have, we're in 2 cities right now. So we're starting our first event here in Medellin next week. And of course, by the time this episode airs, it'll already be over. So I'll be giving you guys a recap of how it goes. But yeah, we're going to be starting to set some up in Mexico City. We got 2 hosts in Playa del Carmen right now. And we're actually using a lot of every event we do, we actually have a videographer and a film crew there filming everything. So we're going to be turning these into episodes. Yeah. We've also been inquired by a couple, I don't know, streaming providers, not Netflix, but like Hulu and stuff like that. And we're entering in our trailer to become a documentary. So we're always looking for stuff, for new content, stuff like that. So starting from the bottom and creating this content of how it became where it is. We're looking at actually franchising into a documentary that would be airing on some sort of streaming provider.
I didn't realize it was that intricate yet. It reminds me of, I do know, and you probably already have somebody for this, but I do know an app developer who made something that I could, it's in beta testing right now, where it's for a community, it's for a group like that. There's a little bit of a buy-in because, the Facebook groups can be a runaway train of just people talking shit and all kinds of weirdos in there. But when you have something serious that either people get a subscription to, or at least they have to be approved by admins or something to an extent, that keeps the community a little bit more whatever. But there are those apps out there now where, of course, you could look anywhere in the world. You pop it open. This could be a feature of the app. Not that we need to get into the development of things while we're trying to give people information about Colombia, but you could look on there and say, hey, I can see Sean's here now. I didn't know he was there. So there's obviously technology is getting better every day. Those things can be made. So that'd be really cool. But the popular things these days, or have always been, are different tiers of hangouts. You've got your working, like you're saying, you're there now. Even if you knew everybody very, very well in that place, eventually people just have to separate at work. Kind of like we all did when we were all in Playa together. All right, man, I'm going to be over here. I got to get this shit done. So you got to get fucking work done. And then you're right. There's the bar crowd, the happy hour crowd, which is awesome when it's time for that. It's awesome when it's time for that. And then there's things like running clubs and that people join now. just because some people have there's a stigma against I'm just going to join a group just to sit around and hang out with people. So they do a running club, but most people just walk. It's like a 5K thing, so. But yeah, it sounds like what you're doing, you could kind of combine all of it. This is where we're going to work today. This is where we're going to hang out. There's not going to be any alcohol at this particular gathering or get together. But if you guys want to go hit a bar afterwards, fucking knock yourself out. There's no rules here. So that's awesome.
No rules to that. And that's what we want to do. We want to make it so that, it's 9 to 5, right? Usually we're trying to plan the events to be on a Friday. So, you've worked the week. The thing is too, is especially for me that I find going out drinking and partying and that kind of stuff was my way of filling my social cup.
Sure.
Right? Because I would be working, Monday to Friday, 8-10 hours a day, doing website development, design, whatever I need to do. And, but I'd be by myself, right? So, the weekend comes, even if I didn't want to drink and get drunk, I'm like, I just want to talk to some people. I want to fucking hang out and do something, right? So then of course, when you go out and then the people that are out are the ones that aren't really focused on improving their lives that much. There are some out there, right? And the ones that are focusing on improving their lives, they're probably just where I was in my situation, where I just want to fucking talk to people. So when you do these events, it allows you to get all your work done Monday to Thursday. Friday comes around, you go to these events, you can meet other people that have the same mindset, the same goals, the same ambitions, the same drive. You get to talk, collaborate. Actually, I got a website development project through a guy that I met at the college coaching event. Right. So we started talking. He asked what I did, asked what he did. He said he's a coach. I said I'm a website developer. He says he can use the website. We work together. Even if you're not being productive, actually working, you're attracting new leads. You're connecting. You're getting outside perspectives. So it's a really cool thing to do, and it fills your social cup. You're not when you're after that. The rest of the weekend, I'm I'm good. I just talked to 20 cool, amazing people all day long. I can just relax now. Right?
Yeah.
So it almost takes that urge to go out of you.
That was my issue, and I've talked to Ori on the other show about this a lot, is sometimes at the end of a long week, even if I didn't feel like drinking, I figure, well, I deserve it because I had a long week. So you could talk yourself into it, and then you're at the bar and I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing on Fridays, right? Because it was for the longest time. Happy hour at the end of the week. That's your reason to unwind, even though it's not really necessary. But back to what you were saying about just being around other people and working at everything or just hanging out. Sometimes you could be talking to somebody who's not even in your industry, and you could have a problem you're trying to work through in your own business. And just the act of saying it out loud to somebody else, even if they don't say a word, you could be like, oh, I got it now. I just needed to verbalize it. So there's that, just bouncing ideas off, or somebody may have a new perspective on things. You mentioned Playa del Carmen is very consolidated. You could literally walk from one end to the other, or at least where the action and all the stuff is, for example. So you're there, transportation wise, did you rent a car? Are you taking public transpo? I imagine it's cheap, but is it annoying? Can you get around easily, or is it something you're like, oh, I gotta wait for a bus or some shit?
So the thing with here is they have Uber, they have Didi, they have Cabify, they have regular taxis. So there's so many means of transportation. And to give an example, a 10-minute cab ride or Uber ride costs anywhere between $1 to $2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cheap.
It's great.
Cheap.
I would just take that every time.
Every time.
I would do that.
We rented a car. I rented a car yesterday for 5 days because we went to that Guatape and did the big hike and went a couple little cool waterfalls. Tonight, after I got a meeting till 7. After that, we're leaving. We're going 6 hours south to a bunch of cool, old rustic colonial parts. I don't have my phone. I'm using my phone for this. I wanted to show you. Yeah. They have a castle here that looks like something out of Harry Potter. It is fucking wild. Yeah, I'll send you.
Yeah, please do. What's the history behind it? Do you know, or what's the reason?
I don't know. I didn't research that much. We can't go that far. It's a 17-hour drive from where we are. So you have to fly. It's right between the border of Ecuador. Is it Ecuador or Guatemala? Ecuador. Ecuador. Guatemala is in Central. Yeah, Ecuador and Colombia, and it's it was the old passageway into Ecuador. So there's this big river that goes through the mountains, and on the Colombian side they have this giant fortress castle, and then this bridge that goes across the river. So that's how you got in and out of the country. It's super cool.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
But yeah, so we rented a car. But as far as transportation goes, it's the longest wait I've waited for an Uber is 5 minutes, and it's so cheap. It's cheap, right? They even have Uber motos here.
Oh, you ride the back of a motorcycle?
Yeah.
I don't know about all that. We did that in Vietnam, or Jesse did. I didn't do it, but those little gojis and little Yeah, which I'm like, okay, I mean, whatever. I mean, they're skilled
Yeah.
riders. It's just,
Yeah, speaking of that too, I talked about the infrastructure. The roads here are immaculate. They're
mm,
so good. There's, in Mexico, every 5 feet is a fucking speed bump. No, they have speed bumps like around corners when it's like they want you to slow down. So before a corner, they put a speed bump in. At a couple intersections, they might do it. The highways don't have any, so you're not, and the roads are well kept. And there's some roads that are like we're on a fucking mountain, right? Like you're
yeah,
climbing up. You're like, oh my god. So like the infrastructure is just, again, it blew me away. Like the entire time I've been driving and walking around here and taking cabs, I'm like looking at the streets, I'm like, there's no garbage, it's clean. Even
yeah,
outside the city in like little towns, there's no garbage. And I think it's a cultural thing. It has to be culture,
yeah.
right?
That
It's like
makes
because
sense.
in
Yeah,
Mexico, I see people, they're just like
yeah. Toss it. Yep.
nothing, right? Like I'm just like I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, right? But here,
Yeah,
like, there's garbage cans set up. There's no garbage in the street. Even if you are poor and you live in a shitty house, everything's clean. It's clean.
sure.
Like, even if you have nothing, you're proud of what little you do have.
This is good to know. I mean, this is hopefully
Yeah.
changes some people's minds because
It,
now I'm excited to check it out. So on that note, like lodging wise, Airbnb wise, you said you could flush things down the toilet, which I always look forward to coming back to the U.S. We have fucking powerful toilets, so I'm sure you do in
oh
Canada.
yeah.
I could flush a cat down this toilet.
If your mom cooks a shitty turkey dinner, you flush the whole turkey.
The whole
down.
turkey, yeah, yeah. But housing and Airbnb wise, and in lodging, from what you're saying about the price being reasonable with every other aspect of it, I imagine it's reasonable. And
Yeah.
then location wise, everything else. Have you had any issues? How did you find the place that you're staying, and how do you like it?
So, well, I'll give you a little backstory about a couple of things too. But so we got an Airbnb for 45 days. It cost us 1,100 US for 45 days. It's a 3-bedroom condo on the 10th floor, overlooking the entire city view of all of Medellin. We're within a 5-minute cab ride from any amenity that you need. You can walk, but I mean, it's a steep downhill walk. I've walked up it once, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. It's tough. But I mean, nice area. Pretty well furnished. We got washer. They don't really have air conditioning units here because it's never gets that hot. Like I think the hottest we got is 29 degrees, but everything's
Oh,
made out of brick here. Everything's made out of
so
brick.
it's not like a hot area. I keep forgetting because everything the elevation's a big deal too. So where
Yeah.
you're at right now, you said 29 Celsius. I can't do that.
Like 85, 90 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, but as far as like not having air conditioning, I imagine it's not humid. Then it's probably comfortable.
Dry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're up in the mountains. So Medellin is like the San Diego of South America.
That's all you had to say. Everybody knows what
That's
that
it.
means. Everybody knows the perfect
Eternal
weather all the
spring.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
it
That's great.
rains. I mean, right now it's rainy season, so it rains maybe for an hour every day, but it hasn't rained in the last like 5 or 6 days. It's green, lush. There's no humidity. Yeah, it's perfect, right? So in the morning you put on sweatpants and a hoodie, go for your walk. Afternoon you're in shorts and a t-shirt. Evening put a hoodie back on. You're perfect, right? So it's like we go out for date nights and like I wear like my nice jeans and a long sleeve shirt and I can actually do my hair with products. I'm not dripping
Yeah.
sweat. And yeah,
Glue everywhere.
it's a really we love it enough that we're going to be looking at getting a house here permanently for every summer,
Yeah. So
right?
that's a hell of an endorsement then, because obviously anybody who lives in Playa or a super hot place tries to leave there during those months if possible. If you got to stick it out, you got
Yeah.
to stick it out. But of all the places to go, to have that thought that you want to make it more of a permanent thing, that's a huge endorsement. So on the note of like getting there and everything else, I know people come from different places. It doesn't make any sense to discuss travel, but customs and the immigration piece, like, so you land at the airport. Is that organized?
So here's the thing as well. So we ran into a problem. Actually, I'm glad you brought it up. I forgot about it. If you're planning to come to Colombia, you're only allowed 3 months at a time. That's it. You can only stay for 3 months, and you have to, before you board that flight, because one of our nanny didn't know that. We didn't know this, but the nanny didn't have it. You need to have your return ticket booked. They will not
Okay.
let you enter. They will not let you get on that plane to fly to Colombia if you do not have proof of you leaving. Even if you,
Sure.
let's say book a return flight, get to Colombia, then you cancel the flight, and you stay for 6 months, do whatever you want to do when you get here.
Right.
But we, like, as we're checking our bags, they're like calling last call for the flights. It's at 4 a.m. We're just waking up, run to the airport. It's like, oh, you need
Yeah.
a return ticket. We're like, you need a what? So like as we're like going through, as we're getting patted down, we're like buying a ticket on our phones, right? So it's but customs is pretty good. One thing that I found out that if you are Canadian, you have to pay to get into the country.
Well, rightfully so, goddammit. What's the reason behind that, though? What's the reason?
Because my great fucking useless country charges Colombians to enter Canada.
Why? Where did that come into?
I don't know.
What a bizarre. I wonder, does Canada do that with a lot of countries, or is it just?
Maybe. I've never heard of that before. I mean, I haven't really traveled to that many different countries. Yeah. I mean, I've been to, in the last 15 years, I've been to 2 countries in Europe, which one was England, which were Commonwealth. The other was France, which I already got from England into France, and then Mexico and Colombia, right? So I've really been to too many different countries. Belize was I guess, I was there for a couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, there must be something that Canada has where it's like, oh, you're from Colombia, we're just going to charge you money to come to our country. So then Colombia's like, we're going to charge you right back. But I entered the country. I show the custom guy my passport. He's like, Canadian over there. Went to a different line. I'm like, my girlfriend's like, where are you going? I'm like, oh.
Wow. That's funny.
I was like,
this guy down.
Yeah, like $86.
Smuggling maple syrup into our country or moose jerky. Don't be bringing that contraband out here. So let's say you land at the airport, because a lot of people, I'm always curious to this when I go to new places, because like recently Playa del Carmen, at least since the last time I've been, they put in Cancun airport, right? They put in an excellent customs thing where you go in. First time I'd been there a few years ago, and it wasn't bad. I mean, the lines moved fast, but you still had to go see somebody. Then they would write you get 180 days, but they would just write in whatever number they felt like, and then you just kind of go through. Now, the last time I came down, when I met all you guys, you go to that machine, you scan your passport, it takes your photo. You don't even have to deal with a human being. And I'm like, this is great. Now, they do that in Cancun because it's a huge tourist destination for Americans and Canadians. So they want people to be like, oh, this is fucking easy. Like, I can get off on a plane here in Detroit, nonstop flight. I don't have to deal with some disgruntled customs employees. So what's it like when you get to Colombia now, in the sense that just that city? I imagine there's different immigration places all over the place. But
for us, it was seamlessly and easy. I mean, they had 8 agents working. They had 2 flights show up at the same time. We were in and out of customs in 15 minutes. It's very simple, very fast. I think the delay was my end, like getting there and actually having to go to a different line and show my passport and pay the fee to get in. But it was very, very seamless. Speaking of that with Cancun, I'm glad you reminded me as well. I actually can't do that when I go to Cancun. I have to go talk to an agent because I have my residency.
You should still be able to breeze through there. No, pretty quickly.
No, they said because I'm not an actual citizen and I just have a residency, if I go through that system, because they need to, when I left, they stamped me leaving and found me leaving. If I don't go and show them my card and they sign my passport, if I do the automated system, it voids my residency.
Screw that.
Yeah. So I have to go through that system. But here in Medellin, it was very simple, very easy, fast. As soon as I landed, I got a Colombian SIM card and exchanged my pesos into Colombian pesos, which, I mean, their pesos are fucking bizarre here. Like $1 is 4,000 Colombian pesos.
Yeah. I don't know why the world doesn't do something about that, where they just lob off some zeros.
Going from like the Mexican peso, right? So when we go, let's say I go for lunch by myself, and it's 45,000 pesos for lunch. You're like, oh my God, you do the math, like, oh, that's $11. Okay, that's nothing, right? But it's just like you look at like buying a house at like billboards, it's like 2.8 billion pesos. You're like, oh my God, and you do the math, like, oh, that's a couple $100,000. But it's just like, they just need to drop a couple zeros. That's all they got to do.
People don't understand how exchange works. People don't understand math. So I give up, but just lob some zeros off that thing and make it easier on everybody, right? So how are the like the payment system? So let's say we're out to dinner or at a bar or whatever. Is it modernized in the sense where you can pay electronically at a lot of these places? It sounds like it's a modern town. Is that all worked out as well? Because in Playa, most places have the little. We don't even have those here in the States yet, where people come out to your table and you could do the tip and they run your card. We still have to do the stupid little booklet and it's, I don't know why we haven't caught up yet. So what's it like down there?
Everywhere you go takes tap. You can tap your phone everywhere. It is so modernized here. Like I said, it blows Mexico out of the fucking water. I don't know how they just revolutionized payment systems here, but you can tap, which is another weird thing too, is you can actually, so if you pay with credit card, you can actually tell them how many payments you want to do. So let's say your bill's $100. You can say I want it in 4 payments. So every week they take out $25, which is
Oh, wow.
a weird, it's a weird system they have here. But yeah, I mean, Tap works, Visa works, Cash works. No problem with payments down here. It's very, very streamlined, very easy. One thing I did notice though is I got my new Wise card, came in the mail. Yay. But
I got a brand new one the other day too. Mine just showed up as well.
I can't take money out with this though.
What's that all about?
I don't know, because there's no I actually can't convert on my phone, my Wise app, US dollars to Colombian pesos. It won't let me do a conversion. But I can use, here's the weird thing, I can use the card to buy things. Like I put it in the machine, punch in my PIN, pay for it, it works. I can tap it, works, but I can't go to the ATM machine here and take money out. It's very strange.
I wonder what that's all about. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. The only thing we can do is we can actually Zoom money. So it's XOOM. It's a PayPal app. You actually send money to the bank and you go in with your passport and then you just say, hey, I'm here for my withdrawal. They just give you cash. So there is a way around it, but it's a little frustrating.
Yeah, and for anybody who's not familiar with Wise, it's kind of like been the big international version of Venmo, PayPal, whatever. It's a very convenient way to convert currency and send money around. I have a Wise personal account and a Wise business account. If I need to run payroll or something, I do that out of there. So it's just a really cool international banking system. And the idea is to be able to get the card and use it anywhere in the world. They don't accept them in Vietnam. That's one of the places, but it sounds like you're having some issue getting money out there. But anyway, it is a great product though. It sounds like whatever the cartel's doing in Mexico, they're not doing it right. The Colombian cartel's got it locked down as far as
they have it made. Like I said, we were talking about the infrastructure. So when you land in the airport, you land in a little small town outside of Medellin, because this is no major airport here. And as soon as you get off the flight, you get in the cab or the van or whatever, you go up this hill, and there's an 8-mile tunnel through the mountain to get to Medellin.
I don't like that. That's a little unnerving, huh?
But it's so cool, right? Like I mean, again, my perception of what Colombia was going to be was like this, desolate third world country. We're in South America. Like South America is, this like decrepit place. I get here, I'm like, fuck this. These roads, these tunnels, the highway maintenance, the traffic is better than fucking Canada, United States. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it kind of blew me out of the water. And then as soon as you come out of the tunnel, you just like see. I'm editing a video because I'm doing it on my YouTube channel again as well. So as soon as you come out of the tunnel, you just see the entire city of Medellin, all the lights. It's a really cool city. It's really beautiful.
I love that. I see our dogs upstairs barking at the people cleaning. That's how we do it in America. We don't even go to car washes anymore. We have people come to the driveway and clean it. So they're doing a mobile detail. So apologies to anybody listening to this and they hear it's a rescue dog.
The guy fixing the fucking door handle.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, let's just make as much noise as we can. Even though I don't have any plans in the near future to go there. I mean, that's really, really nice to know. I'd be curious to see what the rest of the country is like. But quite honestly, if you find a place that you love and you want to go back there, just go back there. You don't have to go everywhere else.
And I'll know more about, we're going to be doing a 6-hour road trip down south. So we were still within a 2-hour radius of Medellin, which is still nice. There's some houses here. You're just like, holy shit, there is money in this country and it's beautiful. So we're going to see some out of the main area later on this weekend. So I'll let you know how that looks as well. But for the most part, I mean, you can just fly to Medellin, stay here for as long as you want, and go. Oh, I did want to talk to you about, you said about housing. So there's actually a surplus of apartments down here. So I guess what was happening within the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of Americans were coming down here, buying apartments, and then really ramping up the sex work industry. So there's there's one area in Pueblado where all the bars are, and we walked there a couple times, and there are just an endless sea of hookers, endless sea.
This place just keeps getting better and better. My
endless sea of hookers, and some of them you're pretty fucking hot, but then obviously they're just kind of the fancy ones, but there's just it's legal. It's legal for them to be there too. They can work there all the time. So what was happening was you have this sea of Americans and Canadians coming down, buy these apartments, sleep with all these hookers. And then the city started cleaning it out. Hey, look, you're no more buying apartments. We're kicking you out of the country. So now there's a lot of apartment buildings that are vacant, right? Because all these developers were shit, all these Americans are coming, build. Right. And they start cracking down on the sex work industry. And they kind of deterred a lot of the people from coming down. So there's not as much construction going on, but there's a lot of really nice places for really cheap. So if you're looking to come down to like Airbnb or rent or stay full time, you can get really nice places for very cheap down here.
After we've mentioned all the good things about it between the infrastructure, the hookers, and everything else,
What
Yeah,
the hookers as well. I don't know this because I haven't bought one. I haven't bought any hookers.
They take electronic payment.
Someone was telling me it's like $20 an hour.
Okay, and then you can pay them in when you go dining, you can make it into 4 payments. I wonder if they have a payment plan.
I don't know if they accept them or not. Again, I haven't really talked to any of the hookers yet. So tell me about your business, right? Yeah, it's apparently it's very cheap. It's legal. I think they get regular checkups too because it's legalized in a certain area. So yeah, it's just I see why it's kind of funny now. So like, me and my girlfriend are walking down the street or driving, whatever. We see groups of Americans and Canadians wondering, we're like, I wonder why you boys are down here.
All from like New York, New Jersey. You could spot those guys a mile away, the tank tops and stupid shit. So yeah, they're getting checkups. It's a real profession down there. So man, well, now that we talked about all the great things about this place, what would you say would be the negatives?
The negatives, I think, would be like the lack of community, right? There's a very big lack of finding that nomad community, right? It's so diverse and so spread out. It's hard to find this is where all the expats live. And I get that, people's like, oh, why don't you just mingle with the locals? I'm like, yeah, it's great. I'm still learning my Spanish, but I can't be talking to them in slang and having a great conversation, being funny. I'm like, hey, how are you? Yeah. Where are we going? It's not the same vibe, right?
Sure.
That'd be one. Another thing is Colombians with their culture, they're not very verbal people, right? So we'll be at the grocery store and a Colombian lady or whatever walked up to us and just stared at us. And I kind of looked at her and then she went like this, so then I moved my cart out of the way and then she went around me. I'm like, use your words.
Yeah. I know, in Playa del Carmen, of course, it's a big tourist trap. Your Spanish is 10 times better than mine. Mine's almost non-existent, but you've been doing pretty well with it. So you communicate well on either side. But how is it down there? Have you found that there's more or less English speakers? Could one get around that knows zero Spanish?
One can get around if you stay in the area of Pueblado, Castropol area, where all the fancy restaurants and bars are and stuff like that, and the tourist places. You can get by without any Spanish. The Spanish is different here. I forget, papote is straw in Mexico, but here it's pulito or something. A tostada in Mexico is a flat round taco shell, a hard shell. Tostada down here is a piece of toast or bread. I don't know enough Spanish to know what the differences are, but there's certain lingo and slangs that are off, and I would say, I can't give you an example. I'd say something, they just look at me. I'm like, Buenos dias, and they're like, bien.
Yeah.
So the slang's different, the verbiage is a bit different, but you can get by, right? I mean, everywhere, most places have English menus too, right? So, or you have Google Translate on your phone, you can scan the menu. There's more English in Playa than there is here.
Anybody who's traveling the world without a smartphone shouldn't be traveling the world anyway. So you should at least have Google Translate on your phone. It sounds like it's a manageable place, easy to get to, inexpensive, organized, clean. Maybe there are some places out there that aren't so great, but hey, it sounds like you found a really, really great spot there. That co-working place you're at now, are there lots of those, or is that one of the only ones that you're in? Yeah,
there's a lot of different ones here. This is actually a Selina hotel, so they're a franchise that's all over the world. There's one in Tulum.
Yeah, don't they do retreats where they have lodging? They do everything, right? It's all inclusive, and you get meals. It's some massive conglomerate. I'm going to write that down and link it as well. Those are expensive, though, aren't they? I think some places.
Some of them might be, but everything's so cheap in Colombia here. I think I got a 30-day month pass for $40, $45, I think. Go in here. And so this is just one of the rooms that they have. They have another big room down there. It's right beside a river, so they have the big doors open, so you hear the sound of the waterfall and the river going down. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, they have free yoga classes outside on the deck. They have lounging hammocks. They have private phone booths you can use. There's a doorway over here as well up into the wellness room, so it's a soundproof room where they have candles and scents, and oils, everything, and yoga mats and pillows. So there's been a couple of days where I need to get worked up. I'm tired. I just go up there. I have a little hour power nap on a cushion. They got a kitchen. It's a really cool space, right? And really cheap. And then they have the hotel. There's a coffee shop, bar, restaurant. There's a lounge and bar downstairs shop. We're actually went and got my beard trimmed last week. So like they have a money exchange place in this year. So I literally got money out, got a haircut, got work done, had a nap, ate lunch, all in the same building.
Those Selina places are popular, man. We looked into traveling to one because we'd seen them online or something. They can be spendy. So it sounds like that particular one is just based on the market value. Like we looked at one that was like $300 a night because it was somewhere really, really nice. It's just because the local area is so inexpensive that they kind of match because I think they have like hostel type dorm areas, and I think you can get single rooms. And like you mentioned, it's worldwide, and they're not all identical, but it's the same company. That's pretty cool. How's the internet at your place versus at coworking? Have you run into issues there?
No, I mean, the internet in our house isn't the greatest. I mean, I don't know if I do a podcast episode there, but it's not bad. Every 3 or 4 days, we got to reset the modems. It feels a little laggy, so we just do a little quick reset on it. The Wi-Fi here seems to be going great. I can load everything, stream this with no problem. Download speeds are pretty good, pretty fast. So everything seems to be really, really good here, actually. Yeah. Their phone plans are cheap. I got 60 gigs of data for $18 for the month.
I don't even know how much I use. Again, just based on everything else you've said about how inexpensive everything is, that I can't imagine that would be the expensive thing. So
that's everything that I've experienced so far points me to come back here again. Like cost of living, food, commodities, extracurricular activities, the infrastructure, internet, like everything points to come here more often.
That might be a great place to end, because normally what we do is we try to jump into a little bit of business stuff, and then we definitely want to get into my silent meditation retreat. But there's so much information in this show about that area. We touched on Playa a little bit and traveling and everything else. We'll spare everybody making this into a weird two-parter where we're talking about too much different shit. But that's great information, man. I know a lot of people will be happy to hear it. I've actually watched some YouTube videos on what's the Colombian city on the coast? That's Cartagena, I think, or something.
Yeah, I forget the name of it. Yeah, I forget the name of the city. But it's a nice area too.
But again, there's a stigma for some reason. Well, not for some reason, but there's a stigma now, and people need to hear this kind of stuff. So the title of the episode is going to have something to do with hookers. I'm just not sure yet, because that's going to get us the most SEO. So
that's what you took out of this. That's what you took out of the whole episode.
That's what I got. They accept all forms of payments, and they get tested regularly, and you can pay them in a payment plan. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. We'll see everybody. To be continued.